Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Marketplace. My name is Darryl Kwa. Great to have you this Friday afternoon. Coming up, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana maintains policy rate at 14.5%. We'll hear the reasons from the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison. Also coming up, Ghana's debt stock for the first quarter goes up significantly to hit 236 billion cedis. We'll make sense of that. Thanks for being with us once again. We've got details right after this break. Welcome back, everyone. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has kept the policy rate unchanged. The committee kept the rate at 14.5%. Addressing the media a while ago, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, said this was due to some risk to inflation outlook. He has also been speaking about a buffer for financial institutions during this period of the pandemic.
To respond that all the measures that we put into place are in the interest of depositors, as well as in the longer term, the interest of the investors themselves, because you also what happens when banks are undercapitalized and have liquidity issues is the depositors who fail to get access to their deposits in the banks. So we are trying to be risk averse and in a sense to protect depositors so that the banks will be careful about how they dissipate earnings. And all that we are saying is that we can see the evolution of, weaker economic conditions, which means in the outlook, one can expect that credit impairments would go up. One can expect that the banks will face a more challenging environment, and all of that will translate into non-performing loans. And therefore, it's important that we conserve the liquidity and the capital that the banks have at this time. So if you think about it, in the long run, it's in the interest of the shareholders themselves that the institutions will be stronger even after the end of this pandemic. We are going through this problem at a time that we have just completed a reform of the banking sector. We have strengthened their capital positions, and therefore the banks are in a much stronger position to manage the developments that have taken place. Nevertheless, we are beginning to see emerging signs of weakness. Profits are going down, their operational costs are going up, the net interest income for banks are beginning to decline. So these are all warning signs in terms of the outlook. But overall, we think that they have the buffers. They have the capital buffers and they have the liquidity buffers to handle this pandemic. Obviously, if things turn out to be much worse than currently projected, you would have a weaker banking sector. But for now, the current projections do not suggest that things would revert back to where we started. This is
Dr. Ernest Addison also has this projection for the economy as we tackle the pandemic.
I think the economy, the buffers of the Ghanaian economy,
looking at the BOG itself,
and the growth projections, because this is really the work that has been done internally from the Bank of Ghana, looking at the developments, and on the basis of the projections that have been done from the World Economic Outlook. If you look at the projections for global growth, you're looking at a 3% decline in global growth. Just looking at the statistical relationship between the growth of the Ghanaian economy and global growth, we have been able to draw some, inferences. And one of those inferences is what we are telling you, that we think the Ghanaian economy will grow between 2% and 2.5%. Now, these things are still developing. If things get worse than they currently are, these projections will change. So it's a situation which is still evolving. But for now, these are the projections that our technical people were able to put together. And then you asked the question about whether the banks were implementing the policy measures that were announced in the last MPC. To the best of our knowledge, they are. And we have been meeting with the chief executives of the banks. The last time we met was on a week today. They gave us updates on where they are. Many of their clients, customers of the banks, have gone to restructure facilities. Loan maturities have been extended for quite a number of customers. I think the data is there. I think over 3,000 or more bank customers have had their loans restructured. Some even reported that some customers were thinking that it was a forgiveness. But the issue is not about loan forgiveness. The issue is about restructuring. Instead of paying the loan in maybe 6 months or 1 year, they are renegotiating to extend these loans to a year or 2.
Well, my colleague JoyNews has been covering that press conference for us. He joins me with more on that. George, what other reasons were given for holding the rate at 14.5%? What other reasons were given for holding the rate at 14.5%?
Well, Dara, this rate is more of a measure that the Bank of Ghana uses to check the amount of money in circulation and also the cost of credits in the country. So what they believe that there are still some uncertainties on the outlook, and therefore you still want to wait before you respond with additional measures. And that is why they thought that if you look at things right now, the right thing to do is just to hold the rate and look at how things would happen. The COVID-19 is still impacting badly on several economies, and therefore you want to watch things carefully and see whether you have to respond. Or don't forget that already they've taken some measures in trying to improve liquidity of these commercial banks and free credit to small businesses. So they thought that, listen, let's hold on for a while, even though we also think that there's some risk to the inflation outlook. Let's hold on for a while, and that is why they kept the rate at 14.5% in terms of policy rate for commercial banks. That is the rate at which these banks are their lend from the Bank of Ghana.
And what other issues came up at that press briefing?
Now, let's start with the economy, because the Bank of Ghana is talking about more of a COVID-19 relief bond that they've issued, a 10-year bond with a value of 5.5 billion Ghana cedis. The governor also talked about a special package that they have in place in terms of a 10 billion facility that they stand ready to support government with. Let's talk about the banking industry that Mr. people will also be looking up to. In terms of the savings and loans company, the governor said that they also stand ready to provide additional support to these banks in terms of reliefs to them. For those who might be facing financial challenges, the Bank of Ghana says it stands ready to provide some liquidity support to them. This wouldn't be free cash, Daryl. This would be more of a loan facility to them, which they are supposed to pay back. Daryl, you also know that by December this year, the rural banks and the microfinance companies are supposed to meet their new minimum capital requirement. What the Bank of Ghana governor says is that this has been extended to December 2021 owing to this current COVID-19 and its impact on funding arrangement. They've given them an extra 1 year to work up and actually meet the new minimum capital requirement. And the governor also said that they stand ready to also provide some additional funding support for the rural banks and also ensure that in terms of rural support, the Bank of Ghana also stand ready to provide other support to them based on requests to the central bank.
Right, George, just in a few seconds, the governor has also been speaking about the city's performance. What did he have to say? Just in a few seconds, the governor has also been speaking about the city's performance.
Well, Daryl, he talked about the fact that the recent blips were expected because that is what you should be seeing in an exchange market. But they've also purchased some dollars overseas to provide or to improve their reserves. So it looks like they are in a very strong position now to support the Ghana cedi and defend it. So for those who might want to be betting on it and the speculators, in terms of support, in terms of reserves, the Bank of Ghana is in a strong position to support and defend the Ghana cedi.
All right, JoyNews, thanks very much indeed. Well, so We're hearing that the country's total debt stock has gone up significantly for the first quarter to hit 236 billion cedis. This was captured in the latest summary of economic and financial data released by the Bank of Ghana. Here's more from Aboagye-Wiafe.
According to the data, in just about 3 months, the total debt stock increased by 18 billion Ghana cedis since December 2019 to hit 236 billion Ghana cedis. However, tracking the debt position from March 2019 to March 2020, the total debt stock increased by 36.1 billion Ghana cedis. Joy businesses learned that this might not necessarily be as a result of fresh borrowing, but can be linked to the city's marginal depreciation during that period and some additional spending to help deal with the financial sector cleanup. The 236 billion Ghana cedis should translate to about 59.3% of the total value of the economy. Now, based on this debt, every Ghanaian should owe about 7,870 Ghana cedis if the debt is shared among a population size of 30 million. Some analysts have even argued that Ghanaians could be paying more in the form of taxes to help settle these debts. When it comes to the country's international reserves, the data put it at $10.2 billion, representing 4.8 months of import cover, slightly higher than our position with the same period last year. In the banking sector, there was a lot to smile about as loans that banks fear would go bad was improving. Deposits was picking up strongly, while loan advances was going up substantially.
All right, let's make sense of this. Joining me to discuss is Courage Boti, an economist with Data Bank Research. So let's begin with the latest debt numbers. We're hearing that we're at 236 billion cedis. What do we make of this, Courage?
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon to your listeners. So that's about 18.1 billion increment from end of year 2019. But if you put it in context or in perspective, you would understand that a very large part of it is actually anticipated. We borrowed 3 billion from the international market in February, and then at the prevailing exchange rate of the time, we're talking about that accounting for about 70% of the 18.1 billion addition to the debt stock since the start of the year. Now, that 3 billion was actually already part of the deficit financing program for the year. And so that chunk is actually anticipated. And over time, we have had also to do some domestic financing of the deficit. But then, of course, with the COVID coming in, some additional borrowings have to come in to help stem the tides and then steady the economy again. So the 18.1 addition, yes, looks alarming, but a chunk of it was anticipated. And then, of course, this time we couldn't, I'm talking of 2019 and 2020 so far, we couldn't talk about the impact of exchange rate because under the period we are considering, January to March, actually, we've seen a net appreciation of the cedi over that period.
Right.
And so we couldn't be attributing part of it to depreciation of the cedi. But of course, a chunk of it is explained by the anticipated inflows from offshore, which actually happened, and we fully had that in the budget.
My last question to you would be about the decision by the central bank to hold the policy rate at 14.5%. You think, we talked about this a couple of days ago, and you were so certain that they were going to hold the rate at 14.5%. So, good move?
Yes, sure. They couldn't have reduced it at this time under the circumstances because we are an inflation target in central bank, and then your inflation range is actually between 6 to 10% over the medium term. We just with a single print we have moved some 280 basis points. Up, and then now outside that target band. What an inflation target in central bank will do will not be to cut policy rate at this time. Plus, of course, we understand that there is a need to stimulate the economy, but there could be other unorthodox ways of doing it rather than cutting the policy rate. And you can see that in the asset purchase program that they've announced, and then the stimulus to the microfinance and NBFI sector as a whole, try to target different sections of the population. And we understand that the asset purchase program is actually as a result of the extra funding need that came after the Ministry of Finance doing a second estimation of what the impact of COVID would be. So making that available effectively meant that they've suspended the zero central bank financing of the budget, which is a memorandum that is supposed to run to end of year. They've actually suspended that with the 10 billion program, trying to help government navigate this storm, as against the option of going to market, the local market, which may come at a really high cost. So for me, I think the decision is spot on. The other options of supporting the economy out of the situation, they have actually adopted unorthodox measures to do that. Within their arsenal of monetary policy tools.
Thank you so much. Courage Buti is an economist. Thanks for your perspective this afternoon. Now, oil marketing company Petrosol has donated personal protective equipment and other assorted products to the Upper West Regional Hospital worth 30,000 Ghana cedis. Petrosol has earmarked 100,000 Ghana cedis for use to buy PPE and other items to be distributed to 10 health facilities across the country. There's more in this report.
The donation made by oil marketing company Petrosol to the Upper West Regional Hospital is a sequel to similar donations that were done in Accra and other places as part of the company's contribution to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The company is distributing personal protective equipment and assorted products to about 10 health facilities across the country worth 100,000 Ghana cedis. According to Petrosol, is to assist medical institutions with the needed medical resources to enable them to treat patients infected with the disease and also protect themselves against the deadly disease. Northern Territory Manager of Petrosol, Balagunyen Timi Desmond, donated the items worth 30,000 Ghana cedis to the Upper West Regional Hospital.
And as part of our corporate social responsibility, we support in the healthcare and the safety of both our medical people and our customers, whom these health directors and health personnel will be taking care of. So, following up from the presentation that was made at our national office in Accra, we have brought the Upper West consignment, and in association with our dealers, we are adding 80 cartons of Vortic water. We have brought in a box and half of these hand gloves. We also brought in 10 pieces of disposable nose masks and 10 gallons of alcohol for use. We also have with us 2 gallons of hand sanitizer and 80 pieces of the N24 nose mask.
Acting Upper West Region's Director of Health Services, Dr. Damien Pugiri, who received the items before handing over to the medical superintendent of the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Robert Amesia, thanked Petrosol for the donation and urged other organizations and individuals to come to the aid of the region to enable it fight the pandemic.
As you are aware, we don't have a laboratory to test suspected samples. We pick them and we have to send to Tamale reference lab for testing. This comes with a lot of cost. We used to depend on Ghana Post, but they have now decided that they will no longer carry the samples. What it means is that we have to carry samples with a pickup almost 3 times a day to Tamale to go and deliver for the test to be conducted. This comes with a lot of resource challenges. So we want to appeal to you here and others out there to support us in any way. It could be fuel, could be anything that will enable us to effectively manage the COVID pandemic, especially in the region.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
You're watching The Marketplace. So a laptop, a comfortable couch at home, a t-shirt and a pair of jeans perhaps, that's today's work environment for millions of people around the world as COVID-19 has restricted movement. But how has this affected work, and can it be effective if this becomes, can it be effective? If this should become a new normal. Now, today on the marketplace, we've been joined by some Ghanaians living abroad and working abroad. I can see you guys, Paulina, I can see Georgina, is it, and Nana. Okay, so Paulina is joining us from Hungary, Georgina joining us from Qatar, and Nana from Australia. So guys, a quick roll call if you like. How many of us are under lockdown right now? Show by hand. Oh, Qatar is still under lockdown. Okay,
yes,
how many of us working from home? Nana is not. Okay, guys, so tell me about your experiences during this period of the lockdown and how it has affected your work. Let's start with you, Georgina.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a very different style of working. We've always had the option to work virtually, but now we're forced to work virtually. It means that personally for me, I've ended up having a lot more meetings, things that would normally take 2 seconds to just walk by someone's desk and get an answer on. You find yourself having to book a whole meeting to have discussions. So really having to be deliberate about what it means when you're at work and also actually balancing that out and switching off when you should.
Okay, what do you do exactly?
Sure. So I work as a policy advisor for an energy multinational in Qatar.
Okay. And Paulina, what's the experience been like for you?
Thank you for having me. So it's been amazing. Just as Georgina, I've always had the chance to also work from home. But working from home now has been really different because, just as she said, sending emails and having countless meetings online. And also, now we understand that the world is moving into the virtual world, so we have to embrace it. Yeah. Okay.
Nana, I'm not too sure whether you were saying that Australia was still under lockdown, but how has working from home affected, productivity, would you say? Are you getting better at it?
I honestly think that it has gotten better in the sense that you don't have to do that commute. And you actually start work feeling very refreshed. So in terms of productivity, there's less pressure in terms of commuting, and there's also less pressure in terms of the office environment. Restrictions have started being lifted now. So in Australia currently, it's being done in 3 stages, where the first stage is just going to be focused on being able to meet up with 2 other people from different households. And then we are currently in a stage where they are allowing more than 10 people from different households to meet together. So it's gradually opening up.
Okay, and finally, guys, we hear talk that this eventually may become the new normal. How many of you are seeing this to be how you're going to be working in the future, or how much of your kind of work would change even after the lockdown? Anyone?
I have to agree. Paulina made that comment earlier, and I have to agree. So my team now is practically all virtual. We're not actually having to go on a rig or to work on an asset. So it makes that actually easy to do. So I think we will find that more and more companies leaning towards home workers and virtual working where they don't actually need to physically be on site.
Okay, and my final question to you guys, because you work outside, you are expected to bring money home. Has that been affected, Paulina?
Yes, I would say it has been affected, but for me, there has not been any significant change in my remittances back home because definitely everybody is in crisis mode now and trying to save a lot because there's a lot of uncertainties. But with remittances back home, there hasn't been any change. For me, the only change I would say is there was an increase during the lockdown because a lot of people are home, not working, and there's a need to support the family. Aside that, I can't really recount on any changes.
All right. Now you have 20 seconds on this. We talk about how work from home has been going smoothly. Are there any challenges you want to share?
Oh, trust me. If you have kids, right, and you have to somehow homeschool them and still do your day job, it's impossible. So I would say kudos to teachers. I don't know how they do it, but that's all I got to say. Kudos to teachers, kudos to whoever takes care of the kids, and let's hope we all get back to normalcy.
All right. Great to have you guys on the marketplace. Appreciate it. Georgina, Paulina, and Nana from across the world. It's been fun. That's the marketplace. My name is Darryl Carr. Thanks for watching.